Film is a disease, Frank Capra said. When it infects your bloodstream, it takes over as the number one hormone. It plays Iago to your psyche. As with heroin, the antidote to film is more film.
Hello and welcome to my Celluloid Heart podcast. And if you're new, of course, to the show, welcome to my Celluloid Heart podcast. The podcast is two films brought together by one topic or theme with trivia to go with it. And there will be spoilers in this episode. Although this episode is going to be a little different because it's a visual medium, as we know, for movies. And when I'm doing a silent movie like The General or police story that's kind of all action Jackie Chan stuff, it's hard to explain, but I'm going to walk you through the story and we'll see. But anyway, so thank you for that. And of course, today's episode, as you can see on your radio or your phone or whatever, is Comedic Action, The General from 1926, and Police Story from 1985. Some corrections from the last show are that all I have to say is that I'm very sorry for making anybody watch King Solomon's Mine, who might have been like, I guess I'll watch it just because they talk about it, and then was like, what the fuck? So the 1985 version, of course, sucks, but the other version from the 50s is better if you wanted to watch that, or just ignore it altogether. So anyway, very sorry for that. And if you have anything that you want to pass on to me, you can call my phone number, my Google phone number for the podcast, which is 602. I forgot the number already. Anyway, you can send me an email at gmail at mycelluloidheart@gmail.com, and with any recommendations or whatever you may want me to know about. So that will be good. Let me find you my phone number right now for you to call. Sorry, I'm prepared, but I'm also not prepared. So, 1 second, and 602-688-2403. That's 602-688-2403. So if you want to do that, you can leave a voice message. You can leave a text message on there. I will get it. 602-688-2403. And, I have a recording that I'm going to play, but not right now. But when I do my next James Bond episode, I got a good one. Anyway, you can send all that there. Now, these newest movies that I watch, this is why this is a different show. I'm going to take less time going through the two movies I'm putting together and more time going through the movies that I've watched, because there's like 30 of them. But they were good. So first I saw Cul De Sac from 1966. It's a Roman Polanski movie, and it was pretty good. It had Donald Pleasance was in it, playing like this weirdo. It was very cool, like an effeminate kind of, it was just really good. And then it had, which I can't think of his name, but it had the guy from Heart to Heart in it that was their butler guy. So it was pretty cool. It's from 66, like I said. Then I saw The Brood from 1979, because Joe Merle at Those Movie Guys said, should check that out. And other people said The Brood's pretty good. So it's a Cronenberg. So I was like, all right, from 1979, check that out. That was on, I think, Amazon Prime. It was pretty good. Some of that body horror stuff that Cronenberg does, so it's very weird. But it was good. I'm glad I saw it. There's a lot of Cronenberg I still got to see. So some main ones that I should have seen. And then I saw this premiere on Criterion. Me and the wife watched it. It was called Bunny Lake is Missing from 1965. And it was by Preminger. And it's on the Preminger set, like Criterion Channel. And it was really cool. It was this woman who just moves to London with her brother. She drops her daughter off at school, first day of school. She goes to pick her up, and everybody's like, no, those kids already left. And she's like, no, but my daughter. And they're like, what's your daughter's name? She's like, Bunny Lake. They're like, we don't know of a Bunny Lake. One person's like, yeah, I think I saw her. And then all of a sudden people are like, no, I don't think she exists. I think you're crazy. And the cops are starting to think that she's crazy. And there is a person that she made up when she was little named Bunny. So they were like, okay, is this woman, so you're going, is this woman crazy or did this really happen? It was really cool. And it's black and white, but it's still really cool. It was just really good. My wife ended up falling asleep, but that's just because she was tired, not because it was boring. And then she woke up. I was like, honey, oh my God, guess what happened? Here's what happened. She's like, oh, wow. So that was cool. We bought The Invisible Man. They came out, and it was like, $15 or whatever. I was like, yeah, let's get it. So we got it because I really liked it in the theaters. 2020. That's when that was from. And I saw a documentary that kind of got me on my path that I'm on today for this stuff. Was called The Great Buster. It's all about Buster Keaton that Peter Bogdanovich did on Turner Classic Movies. So it goes through his life, Buster Keaton's life, from when he was born on through till his death. Then the end of it is all of his movies. They talk about every single movie. It's very cool. And they talk to people like Mel Brooks and people like, Richard, no, I can't even think. Anyway, Quentin Tarantino, Mel Brooks. They talk to all these people. Carl Reiner. Everybody's like, yeah, Buster Keaton, so great. So that was really cool. That was made in actually 2018, but it's really good. I don't know if you can find it on Turner Classic Movies anymore. I don't see it there. But if you get a chance and you love old movies like I do, silent film comedians, especially Buster Keaton, then go ahead and do that. My intro to Buster Keaton, real quick, was I had known about him, but I was more of a Chaplin guy. Like, I still probably am, but I really like Keaton, but I more know Chaplin stuff. And so then I go and see Benny and June, and I'm like, oh my God, like, he's doing the roll dance. Like, that's great. But he's dressed like Buster Keaton. And they're like, yeah, it's all silent comedy stuff. This is where Johnny Depp's, thing came from. So I'm like, oh my God. So then I start looking up Buster Keaton stuff. And I bought this whole thing of Chaplin, started watching every single little short film of Charlie Chaplin, big film, short film, whatever. Still haven't seen Limelight, but I've seen everything else. I'm kind of waiting on Limelight. I think it's a thing of like afraid to finally finish, because I've seen all of Chaplin's movies. So it's kind of weird. But anyway. Buster Keaton, though, then I saw The General, I saw Cops, I saw Sherlock Jr., I saw Steamboat Bill Jr., and and it was just like, oh my God, this is great stuff. So that's what made me like, wow, he is pretty cool. Like, as cool as just a great physical comedian, and actor. So it's pretty great. Then we saw Mikey and Nicky from 1976, me and the wife. She likes Columbo. I like Columbo. We watch that sometimes to fall asleep. It's on Amazon. And so Mickey and Nicky is a John Cassavetes and Peter Falk movie. And it's basically Peter Falk, and they're in the mob, him and John Cassavetes. John Cassavetes has done something wrong, and now the mob wants him dead. And so now he's kind of worried and on the run, but still in town, still in New York. And his buddy, Peter Falk, is trying to help him get out of town or whatever. But it turns out, and this isn't a spoiler because you kind of learn it right away, is Peter Falk's just kind of trying to make him stay in certain spots enough to where the killer, Ned Beatty, an assassin, can come and kill him, a hitman. And what's great about it is Ned Beatty is not a hitman like Leone or fucking Antonio Banderas or Sylvester Stallone. He's this guy who has a map spread out of New York in a shitty hotel room, and he's got a marker, and he's marking like he's never been to New York, so he's trying to figure out how to get to this restaurant where they're at. And then he's like on payphones, and then he's watching people, and he's just a really skeevy guy, and it's really cool. So I really liked it. It's kind of a slow drama, a little bit of suspense, but I think that's why my wife fell asleep. She's like, this isn't what I thought. She's like, is that guy paranoid or is he really being watched? I'm like, no, he is really being watched. Then on those movie guys, Phil on there, always Phil, was talking about Lockout from 2012 with Guy Pearce. And it's on Netflix. And I had forgot about this movie. I remember when it came out, I watched it. I really liked it. It was one of those where, wow, I really like that. Should I buy it? I don't know. It was really cool, though. I liked, even though it's cheesy, I liked that character. And so then he was talking about how great it was, and he watches it like a lot. So I was like, well, shit, it's on Netflix. I'm going to watch it. So I watched it, and goddamn is that fun. That character's so fucking cool. He's got these great one-liners. Like, I wish they would have done a Lockout 2 or like something else. I wish they just have Guy Pearce do that again. Like, I think he still could. You could bring him out of retirement, whatever you want to call it. He's kind of like a Snake Plissken. It's kind of like that. You could put this with Escape from New York because they hire him to, well, no, they're talking to him later after he's done this thing. No, I'm sorry. They talk to him later. They make him go to this prison, this space prison, to go break the president's daughter out. So it's very cool. So definitely check that out. That's on Netflix. Then we had heard about this Child 44 with Tom Hardy, and we thought, oh, that sounds good. And I said, yeah, I've been wanting to watch it. It's from 2015. And we watched it, and it was kind of slow, kind of historical in a way where you have to know what was going on in Russia at the time, after the war, during the war, and after the war. And so it's like, so it was okay, but not great. Not one of my favorite Tom Hardy. He did good in it, and it had Noomi Rapace, which I love. So that was cool. Then I had read a thing that Quentin Tarantino wrote a review on a movie called Targets, Peter Bogdanovich's Targets. It was his first movie that he ever made before he made Last Picture Show. Let me take a drink of water. And what was cool about this, first of all, it's got Boris Karloff in it, his last performance. And they, it was like Roger Corman was like, can you make me a movie and use some of the footage from this other movie that we have coming out with Boris Karloff in it, put it in this movie? He's like, yeah, sure. So he wrote the script, made it happen, had a great time doing it. They did it on the cheap where they had, and it's really cool. It's about this guy that just decides to kill people. He wants to like sniper, like being a sniper, like killing people. And he gets up on this tower and he starts shooting people that are on the freeway. So in a way, it's, it could be, could stir up some things in people if you've dealt with any of that or lived through any of these shootings, these freeway shootings. But, so then they would just film, and they would have radios in the car, and they would tell the guy, boom, boom. And then that person would lean over like they got shot, and they'd veer off the road, and nobody else knew what was going on. Finally, by like the third person, then the cops were called because this woman gets out, and she's a woman that's the actress, and she's running around, and then she's supposed to get shot and fall down, and she falls down in the street, and then people call the police. And then as the police show up, they're like running away and leaving. So it's pretty cool. It's really cool. Targets, I found it on Criterion Collection. I think it's on Canopy. If you have a library card, Canopy has a whole bunch of stuff. So that was pretty cool. Then I saw this Italian movie called Investigations of a Citizen Above Suspicion from 1970. So basically this police chief, he just became police chief, and he's been seeing this girl, and he always tells her about what kind of crimes they dealt with and how he found the person. and then they'll stage the things. So she'll lay there like she's been choked, and he'll take pictures, and he'll keep it in a book. And then he comes home. The beginning of the movie is he shows up there to see her, and all of a sudden he starts choking her, and he doesn't stop, and he kills her. And he puts his fingerprints all over a glass, and he leaves like the thread of his tie, like takes off a piece of a thread of his tie, puts that under her fingernails, all this stuff, like to let them know it's me. And everything that they do, they're like, we found this blue string. And he's like, really? And he's wearing the exact blue tie. And he's like, well, that's weird. And then they go and investigate the tie. And then he's trying to also cover it up, which is weird because he kind of did it so that they would know it was him, but then also goes and like buys all the blue ties so that they can't find any to match the stuff. And but anyway, it was really neat. And then at the end, it's kind of like like, okay, well, shame on you, let's go forward. Like they kind of just brush it under the table and brush it under the rug, and they're like, okay. So I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. I thought it was going to be one of those Italian ones, like that one that I watched that Edgar Wright told me to see. Can't think of the name of it. Violent Cop, Good Cop, Violent Cop, whatever it was. That was really good. Then me and the wife saw Lovebirds. It's on Netflix from 2020. And and I saw that on Criterion, that other one, the Italian movie. Lovebirds we liked. It was funny. It wasn't great. We thought it would be as funny as like Stuber, but it was still funny, but not as funny. Then, I'm trying to get into horror movies a little more. So these weird ones that normally I may not watch, I watched. And it was called From Beyond from 1986, made by the guy that did, the Reanimator and Bride of the Reanimator and all those. It was good. It was fun. It was silly. Nothing where I would tell other horror people to watch, but it had, it was like an alien invasion type thing. So it was interesting. If you're into that kind of stuff or into like Bride of the Reanimator or the Reanimator movies, then go ahead, and you've probably already seen it. But anyway, then I saw a movie called Cornered from 1945. This was on either Criterion or Turner Classic Movies, and they're tracking down Nazis in like Argentina or around there, and it's like a film noir, and it's really good and really cool, and I really liked it. It was like this guy, his wife had died from the Nazis, and so he was kind of working with the underground to catch these guys. It was really neat. Then this one is so cool because the visuals and the feel of it, so cool. Goke, I don't know how actually to say it. Goke, Goke or Goke, because it's a Japanese. Goke, Bodysnatcher From Hell from 1968. This movie started out right away. A plane flying, looked like from Kill Bill. Like it was that exact same, like her flying to go see Oren Ishii, like in the sky, like that's exactly how the plane looked. And I was like, that's where Quentin got it from, this movie. And then all of a sudden they see like a flash and their plane starts to crash. There's a guy on board that's going to hijack the plane, but then they have to go down and they crash land, and it's like alien invasion. There's like, UFOs and shit. And it's very fucking cool. It's, it's different. It's not for everybody. A little silly, Japanese, but it's really neat. So it's like this group of like maybe 10 people that have to figure it out, have to figure out what's going on. Some people are, again, like that other one, it's kind of Invasion of the Body Snatchers type thing, where then this person gets taken over and then he goes to take over the other person, and then they're slowly getting dwindled down. So it's really neat. Then on Netflix, we saw The Wrong Missy, and that was really funny. I think everybody's probably seen that. If not, you should check it out. David Spade movie. Laura Lapkus. It's very good. I liked it. It was funny. It's one of those, it was funnier than Lovebirds. So, yeah. Then I saw Blind Alley from 1939, another Another one of these film noirs, and it was a psychiatrist being held hostage. And so he's being held hostage by this guy, and he tries to psychoanalyze the guy while he's being held hostage so that he can save his family. And it's very cool because he's like, did this and that, and the guy starts to kind of open up and talk to him, and he really finds out, like, oh shit, you know. I remember when I was a kid, I saw my dad die or whatever, get killed, and it was like very cool. I liked it. If you don't like those black and white movies, then ignore it. And this shows you all these movies I've been listing, and I'm sorry that I'm running through it, but, you know, I hope you enjoy it. So I've heard people say they enjoy what I've been watching. As I told Joe Merle, I stole this from your show, what I've been watching, but I enjoy helping, sharing. And all my movies are like different. Like I got Italian movie in there, Japanese, like silent movie, like, you know, a documentary, you know, all this stuff. And here's another documentary, Gimme Shelter from 1970. It's the Rolling Stones documentary where they hired the Hells Angels to be their bodyguard, to be security for their free concert that they were throwing at Audemars. I think that's whatever it's called. And so they fucking don't hire fucking Hell's Angels to be your security because they're fucking rough as hell. They're throwing people around. People are like all love and peace, and they're just throwing people around. And then there was somebody died there, and it was kind of crazy. And when you watch it, looks like one of the Hells Angels stabbed a guy in the back and in the head and killed him. But it was one of those where I was watching it, I'm waiting for it, and my wife's like, you know, this is just a concert movie. And I said, no, that's what it was supposed to be. It's going to end up being something. But it wasn't until the very end that it got that way. But you did see the craziness of the Hells Angels, which is just, But anyway, you should check it out. I watch it because I had heard about it. Mark Maron talks about it. He's got a big poster. Whenever somebody's on his podcast, they see his poster, and they're like, oh, Gimme Shelter. Yeah. Anyway, then on Criterion Collection, on Criterion Channel, they released Jackie Chan. So they have Half Loaf of Kung Fu, Fearless Hyena 2, Police Story, My Lucky Stars, and Police Story 2. And there's another one before that, like one of his first ones, a couple of his first ones that he didn't direct. He didn't direct until Fearless Hyena. And My Lucky Stars is a Sammo Hung movie. It's got Jackie Chan in it. And they did a series of these My Lucky Stars movies. The group of the 5 guys is called Lucky Stars, 4 or 5 guys. And so it's very cool. Sammo Hung, some other guys that I know, but I can't name right now because I didn't write down the names. But Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, it's a comedy, so it doesn't have a lot of action in it, but it's got like some chases, and they're trying to take down these bad guys. So it's pretty cool. That's from 1985. Then I saw Gorky Park. It's been on my Amazon list for a while, and I was finally like, I'm going to go ahead and watch this. And it's got Lee Marvin in it, and John Hurt, and or William Hurt, sorry. And from 1983, it's like a police procedural, but Russia. So William Hurt is this Russian police officer, and he's investigating this American guy who is Lee Marvin. And it was good. It was a good little police thing, but you know. Am I glad I watched it? Yeah, I guess. Would I watch it again? No. Could I have done without watching it? Yeah. So then I saw Fearless Hyena from 1979. And my wife's like, oh my God, you're on this Jackie Chan thing. What's going on? I go, first of all, it's on, you told me to use Criterion Channel. Like, we're paying $100 for it a year. So yeah, I'm going to use it. So, but she doesn't like, because it's, you know, I watch it subtitled. And anyway, Fearless Hyena is like, he's this kid who kind of knows Kung Fu, but can't really show that he knows Kung Fu. And then he ends up toward the end, he has to fight. Now I'm getting them both confused. There was two. Hang on a minute. Because then Young Master was where he became a master at that's the next one I watched from 1980. He became the master at a fighting school. And it was good because he dressed like an old man. He'd come out and they go, our master is going to beat you up because they want more students to come in. And so a guy would go, no, everybody should go to my school. And then he'd be like, this old man's going to beat me? And they go, yeah. And if he beats you, then all your people have to come to my school. Sure, no problem. And then Jackie Chan kicked that guy's ass in a funny way. And it was like, oh, shit. So that was great. Forgive me that I can't think of how Fearless Hyena was. But there's some great fight scenes in that. Great fight scenes in Young Master. I think I liked Young Master better than Fearless Hyena. And then there's a Fearless Hyena 2 that I haven't watched yet, but they say they just took the footage that was on the cutting room floor, and the director took it from Jackie Chan and just made another movie, made a second movie out of the outtakes. So it's like, okay. Anyway, Young Master was 1980. I said that. Watched The General from 1926. That's always great. And I'm gonna share a link on my Facebook page, I think on the show notes, for you to find. I found the general that the one that I watched. It's a public domain, so I found it on YouTube and I watch it. And the two that I did find had no music to it. My thing was that I couldn't find. I wanted the original music. And I was like, now, is this just made-up music that somebody made up to go with it or not? And I'd seen it before, so it was okay to watch it totally silent. So I just watched it totally silent. But I recommend you watch it. I'm going to share one that's actually color that I usually don't believe in. And it has sound of, like, if they knock on a door or they wipe their pants off, you hear that, like things being, all that stuff. So it's very cool. So I'm going to share that one. Definitely check that one out. I think you'll all like it, hopefully. If you don't like silent films or silent comedy, or if you haven't seen any, maybe start with Chaplin, start with some of that. But, I mean, I like Buster Keaton. It's great. So, and it's a good story. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. Then I saw Capone, rented that, me and the wife at Redbox. Capone was a little trippy because it's his last years of life, and he's got the syphilis, and it's affecting his mind, and so he's having these weird thoughts and visions, and it's going into these weird dream sequences where you're like, is this going on now? Is this really happening? Is it not happening? And then you look up some of the stuff, and you're like, oh, that's not true. Like, the FBI is looking for this $10 million that he hid and can't find it. And my wife looked it up. She's like, there was never $10 million that the FBI was looking for. I said, okay. And then like things of him shooting with he goes and gets a Tommy gun and he's shooting at people on his property at his big mansion. And it's like, oh my gosh. But anyway, because he was free. I had forgot, but he was free at the end. They released him from Alcatraz because of the syphilis, let him live at his mansion. And then he had to sell the mansion and all that because they were hurting for money. Then I saw Just Mercy, fucking great movie. It's on, Amazon Prime. It's on all these places where you can find it streaming for free. They're giving it for free. It's from 2019. It's, I can't even think of the people's name. Jamie Foxx and, everybody's yelling at me right now. I'm sorry, I drew a blank. The guy from Fruitvale Station and Creed. I know you're all yelling at the radio. So it's really good. It's just, it's a wrongfully accused guy. He's in prison. Very good. And to speak on that for a little bit, I'm not a political show. I'm a movie show. But, something's got to change. I know that. Something's got to change with, the police department, like all the way down to the base of the police needs to change. But anyway, that's all I'll say about that. Heathers from 1989. So the other day I get home, my wife's got Pluto TV playing. Or no, maybe I turned it on. It's just like 10 or 20 minutes into Heathers. They had already killed the first person. And I was like, oh yeah, I keep wanting to rewatch that. I saw it a long time ago when it first came out. I had heard how great it was, cult kind of movie, and I watched it. And so like in the early 90s, and I was like, wow, this is cool. And I watched it again. It's really fucking good. I really like it. Like dark comedy. Like I love it. It's great. I had forgot how great it was. So that was cool. Then of course I rewatched Police Story from 1985, which I had seen, a couple shows ago. I talked about watching that. Watch that again for the show. Then I watched a movie, which is Jackie Chan, Police Story. Oh, and I'll get to that, but Police Story is great. Then Joe and Phil, on those movie guys, forgive me for always talking about them, but hopefully they listen. At least Joe listens, and other people that know Joe. And him and Phil talk about a movie called The Greasy Strangler from 2016. And they're like, oh, you should watch this. People should check it out. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was thinking it was like an older kind of cheesy movie. And then I'm like, oh, it's 2016. Like, this is new. And then I go, all right, I got to watch it without the wife because I'm sure she'll just be like, this is fucking weird. I put it on. This thing is fucking great. I don't know how to explain it. I would say it's like, rubber, Napoleon Dynamite. Like, it's all this stuff that's just weird things that people say, these weird shit. Like, the guy and girl, like, the guy is either fingering the girl or doing her with a dildo. You don't see anything explicit, but all of a sudden she's like, what if I just farted? And it's like, holy shit, like, what? And then it's like the guy's like, I love you, and like all this stuff, just right away. And the father is like naked on the bed with the blanket on him, and he's talking to his son, and his son and him just wear underwear around the house. And his son's, 25 or something, maybe 30, whatever. And his dad's like 60. And all of a sudden, he goes, hang on, let me tell you something. And his dad rolls back on his back, throws his legs up over his head, and you see his bare ass, and he farts in the kid's face. Kid, 30-something years old or 40. And it's just hilarious. It was funny. And it's all that weird humor. And then he loves to eat greasy shit. And then he puts grease all over him, the father. And then he kills people. And it's just fucking what? It's so great. So check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. If you want to check it out and then write me and let me know what you think, that'd be great. Then just this morning, I saw Haxen from 1922, which again, Joe Merle had seen. I had seen it. I was like, that looks interesting. It's basically telling you about witches, the history of witches. So the first part, it's like 6 parts, but they're all in one movie, an hour and 45 minutes. And so it's got like just pictures with writing of like, here's what it is. It's from Denmark or whatever. And then they tell you about, here's the history of witches from way back when. Then they have actually actors playing out something that they'll explain. And I really like it because the guy doing it is like, and then here's what I found. And then my actress told me this. And it's just really cool. And they show like the torture devices. And it's just really like, for 1922, they have witches flying on brooms. They have like some really weird, they even have some reverse camera stuff where like these coins will like, first of all, they're like stop motion, like they'll surround on a table. And then also they'll go back up, like jump out of the room, like, oh, so cool. Anyway, and then just now, before walking in here, I saw a movie called Danger, Diabolik from 1968. And this movie it's about this main criminal. He's a thief, and he's like, nobody can catch him, but he's really rich. It's from a comic book, from an Italian comic book that these two sisters made. But he's real rich. He has like an underground, like he pushes a button and the ground opens up and he can drive his car down in there, down a big long tunnel. And then he's got this big giant round bed, and it's by Mario Bava, and it's his first like big, like he was given $3 million to film this thing by Dino De Laurentiis. And he was like, okay, I guess. He's like, here, I made it for $400,000. And they were like, oh, wow, you saved us a lot of money. Do you want more money to do a sequel? He's like, no, I'm going to go back to making my movies cheaper. And he did. So that was very cool. And now, something that I wrote here, like I said, I'm going to try to make this, kind of quick. But I wrote this thing about Chaplin and Jackie Chan, so let me read that. Pratfall's choreographed dance numbers and amazing stunts have always made us laugh or had us in awe. Silent comedians in movies that came from vaudeville know what made people laugh. Some of them had great control of their body. Chaplin could do a somersault while holding a tray of dishes and not drop one. Keaton could take a fall and not get hurt. They knew their strengths and weaknesses. When Keaton made a movie, he would figure out the beginning and the end, and then fill in the middle with gags and whatnot. This is where Buster Keaton and Jackie Chan are similar. You could put them in a crowded restaurant or a sparsely furnished room, and they would give you an amazingly choreographed fight, chase, or suspenseful sequence, and it would be amazing and funny. Unfortunately, Buster Keaton passed away in 1966. However, the films that he left us are beautiful and amazing. Crazy stunts and gags that look effortless. Who knows how long it took to perfect, but in the end, it's pure gold. If he had cut corners to get the picture out sooner, we would not be talking about his films today. So that's just a little preamble to, The General. And now let's get into it. The General, the plot is Johnny loves his train, the General, and Annabelle Lee, his girlfriend. When the Civil War begins, he is turned down for service because he's more valuable as an engineer. Annabelle thinks it's because he's a coward. Union spies capture the General with Annabelle on board. Johnny must rescue both his loves. Stars Buster Keaton as Johnny Gray, Marion Mack as Annabelle Lee, and in there is Buster's father, Joe Keaton, playing a Union general. So he's just on like a small bit, but it's pretty cool. And Marion Mack came from Mack Sennett, had these bathing beauties, and Buster Keaton's like, hey, I like that girl. Let me use her for the film, and he did. Written, it's from the book, Daring and Suffering, A History of the Great Railroad Adventure by William Pittenger, adapted by Paul Gerard Smith and Al Boasberg, and written by Clyde Bruckman and Buster Keaton, and directed by Clyde Bruckman and Buster Keaton. So I think all the stuff Buster Keaton's doing on the train, while he can't be on the film driving in the car next to the train, that's where Clyde is doing everything. Clyde's directing, but mostly it's Buster Keaton directing, editing, doing everything. So great. This I've done a little different. I used to do I do the fucking Wikipedia, and I give this list of everything in the movie, but I just kind of want to make this short because I talked about all those movies I've been watching, and because I can't do this film justice until you see it. You got to see it. So Joe, you told me you hadn't seen it. Please go see it. It's great. So they find out the Civil War has started, and Johnny's girlfriend tells him to enlist. He tries, but is too valuable as an engineer. Like I said, they don't tell him this, and Annabelle thinks it's because he is a coward. She will not date him until he is in uniform. A year later, a Union spy steals the General and is going to burn all the bridges along the route so that the South will not get supplies, because Johnny Gray is with the South. So the heroes of this film, unfortunately, are the South, but don't hold that against this film. It's just Buster Keaton was like, I don't think anybody will root for the North being the heroes, so I'm going to make the South the heroes, which maybe in 1926, that's true. Who knows? But anyway, sorry I had to pause for a second because my dog went crazy and unplugged my monitor. Anyway, so Johnny gives chase, first on foot, then by handcar, and Bone Shaker bicycle, which are those real, like, it's just like a wooden seat and like a big wheel, and it looks very hard to drive. But he's running on foot, and he's telling everybody, come on and let's go. And everybody jumps on the thing, and they go, and something goes wrong. Anyway, I forget. Anyway, sorry. And he runs after him. Then he gets a hand car, and so he starts going after him. He realizes nobody's with him. Then the hand car, because they knocked the rail loose, the guys he's chasing in the general. So then the hand car wrecks. Then he jumps on the Bone Shaker bicycle that he steals from some lady and takes on down the road. And then before reaching the station at Kingston, and then, he alerts the Army detachment there. That's the one. Okay. Sorry. Again. So before he tells everybody, let's go, nobody runs with him. So he runs. And that's the only train they have. It's the general. So by the time he gets to Kingston Station, he alerts their Army detachment of what's going on. They board another train like a flat car. He gives chase with him manning the locomotive. So he jumps in the engine and goes, but it's not hooked to the flat car, and it just goes by itself, and it's called the Texas. And so he just leaves them. All the troops are just left behind. And by the time Johnny realizes he is alone, it is too late to turn back. And there's this part with a cannon where he goes by a cannon. He decides, I'm going to hook the cannon up to the engine. He's got the engine. He's got the wood car behind him. And then he hooks up the cannon. And he starts hauling this cannon behind him. And he gets his leg caught on the little thing that hooks it to tow it on the rails. And all of a sudden, he shakes his foot loose, and now he's already loaded the cannon, ready to shoot. And all of a sudden, it's like jumping and like hopping. And as it hops, it's like all this stuff he's like, okay, I'm going to have this cannon. The thing will flip under it, the little tow hitch. And the tow hitch will hit every tie of the railroad. And with every tie that it hits, that cannon will lower and lower, and all of a sudden be aimed right at me and won't be able to elevate and shoot at, the bad guys that I'm chasing. So with each one, it like starts to come down, and he sees it, and he grabs like some wood out of the wood car and he throws it. And this is where I think he's just an amazing. I had read that during the outtakes, they would go play baseball on the side of they'd stop the train and go play baseball. And everybody's like, he could have been a professional ball player. And I think there's a scene where he grabs a piece of wood and just kind of chucks it at the cannon, but it hits the cannon directly. Like if I were to try to throw and hit a cannon, I don't think I would. And if I'm doing a movie and I got to throw this piece of wood, it just happens to hit, I'm just thinking he got lucky and it happened. You could think he got lucky, it happened to hit it. No, I think he knew how to aim. He knew how to hit it. And who knows, maybe there were 17 takes of that, but I don't think so. But he throws a wood because it's just a little thing where he throws a wood, it hits it. Anyway, it's very cool. And then he pulls. Then they start throwing railroad ties in to in front of him so that he's going to run into those the people that he's chasing. So then he slows the train down, runs up in front of the train, pulls the railroad tie out, but then the train scoops him up on the cow catcher, the front of the train. So now he's holding the one radio tie while laying on the cow catcher. And then when he comes up to the next radio tie, the railroad tie that's kind of hanging off a little bit, but still on the rail, he throws the railroad tie he's holding. Now this is a full railroad tie. Throws that, big square 4x4, throws it, and it hits the other railroad tie right on the end. The end of his railroad tie hits that railroad tie and flips it right off the track. And now he can go full bore. And that's a scene that I've always fucking loved. It always amazes me. It's so great. Then he goes to where they are. Now they've pulled over in the general, and now it's night, and they're inside their place, and he goes in there to get some food because he's hungry, and he's hiding under the table, and he hears their plan, which is to now go back and destroy like all the all the supply lines and stuff. So he's like, well, I'll show them. I'm going to go and tell everybody about it. And then he sees them bring his girl in, and Annabelle. So then he sneaks outside, and he knocks out one of the guards, and then he knocks out the other guard. And just with it, like he walks out like he's in uniform, in their uniform, hits one over the head, and then walks over to the other one, hits him in the head. It's very funny. And then he goes in through the window, and he saves her, and then beats the bad guys up a bit. That's pretty cool. And then they get caught in the there's a storm, and they step in a bear trap, which is not with teeth on it. It's just anyway, it's funny. It's some funny stuff going on in the forest. Then he steals the general back, and he's throwing stuff off the train to block the other train. And so it's very cool because he's just telling her, like, throw stuff out there. So they're throwing like barrels and boxes and all this stuff. And then there's a part where he tells her, then there's a beautiful part where she's sweeping up, and then he tells her to put more wood in the engine. So she goes and gets a little small piece of wood and brings it back, like maybe the size of a pencil, and brings it back, and then opens the little door, throws that in there, and he's looking at her, and then he leans down and grabs like a small sliver, like a toothpick size, gives that to her, and then she puts that in and smiles, and then he like chokes her, like jokingly, like chokes her and shakes her, and then gives her a kiss. And it's just a funny, great moment where she's sweeping, and it's like, why are you sweeping? We're being chased right now, and here you are doing this shit. Like, what the fuck? It was hilarious. Later he gets so now they're getting ready to go across this bridge, and he pulls the lamp out of the front of the general that has all the lamp oil in it, and he uses it to pour the lamp oil on the bridge and the other pieces of wood, and then he lights the bridge on fire. But now she's started to drive away, and now he's stuck in the middle of the fire. So he has to jump over the fire, and then he falls into the river, and then he crawls out and runs up the side and gets on the train again. And it's very cool. And then they tell the Confederates, and the entire army heads to the bridge to stop the bad guys. And now the North starts to cross the river and the bridge is still on fire. And the train falls through the burning bridge. And that scene cost $42,000 to film, which is $2 million in today's money. And it is the most expensive scene in silent film history. Like, he was given $400,000 to make this movie. And he was like, okay, by Skank, I forget the guy's name, John Skank or whatever. Anyway, he's given money by the producer to make this movie. And he loved it because he went and did it from the book, wrote the script, loved it, went and made the movie. That scene cost $42,000, and which I'll get to later about how this film did. The North starts to advance, but the South is there to counterattack. There's a funny part with a sniper. So there's a sniper, and he's shooting people, and every time one of the main bad guy tells the main general or whatever tells Buster to like tell those people what to do. Tell the cannon people, shoot over there and shoot over there. So Buster Keaton goes up there, and he's pointing, okay, over there, shoot over there. And every time he points with his sword, that guy will die that he's talking to. He gets shot. So then he goes to the next guy, and he points like, go over there. And he's kind of like, let me see. And he points, and that guy gets shot and dies. But he can't see the shot. He just knows that guy dies. And then he does that with like 3 people. And then, and every time he's like trying to point and do these things, the end of his saber keeps coming off. So it's pretty funny. And then there's this one part. Then finally he goes to like attack and throws his sword out, and the saber end comes out. He's holding the hilt that's still in his hand. Sword flies out, and then you see a shot of the sniper with the sword in his back, and he's dead. And it's like, oh great, so he killed the sniper now, so that's cool. Anyway, it's funny. The North ends up retreating after the river rises. Southern Army arrives back in town. Buster catches the Northern general. He knocked out on the general, and the guy was still on the general. So then when he wakes up, Buster like catches him and takes him to surrender to the Southern general. And the general then calls Buster over and asks, is this your uniform that you're wearing? And Buster Keaton's like, no. And now he's thinking, oh, I'm in trouble. He's like, no, it's not. He's like, take that off right now. And he's like, oh, and he takes it off. And then he tells his man to go get him a uniform, and the general's second in command runs up, or his little gopher guy, gives him a lieutenant's outfit. And he's like, here you go. And he's like, here you go, lieutenant. And he's like, oh, so now he's a lieutenant. Now he's officially in the Army. And, and so it's like, cool. Now he can be with Annabelle. Johnny and Annabelle sit down on the side of the general, start to kiss. But now all the soldiers start waking up in the morning. And they're all walking by the train. He's sitting like by the train. And so now he has to salute every soldier that walks by. So he's got Annabelle on his right. And he's got his arm around her. And when one guy walks by, he has to move his arm and salute with the right. Put it back, get ready to kiss her, go back, salute the guy with his right. Finally, he moves her over. He moves to the left. He takes his hat, kind of covers their face so they can kiss, and then just salutes several times, just moves, does a motion of saluting with his right arm so that everybody can just continue to walk by and he can kiss his girlfriend. And it's very cool, very sweet. At the time of its initial release, The General, made toward the end of the silent era, was not well received by critics and audiences, resulting in mediocre box office returns, about $500,000 domestically and approximately $1 million worldwide. Because of its then huge budget, $750,000, supplied by Metro chief Joseph Skank, that's his name, and failure to turn a significant profit, Keaton lost his independence as a filmmaker and was forced into a restrictive deal with MGM. So I'm going to read some more, but that's what sucks because, first of all, it says 750. I don't know if it's 750. This is a Wikipedia number. If he was given 400, maybe that's the other thing. He went from 4 to 750. Maybe his was 400. Anyway, whatever it was. And the thing with him losing his creativeness and being restricted is then he goes to MGM and he does talkies, and MGM won't let him do any of his gags that he's known for. Like, that's why those first movies of Jackie Chan on Criterion, I almost don't want to watch those two. Because it's not Jackie Chan directing the action. It's not Jackie Chan doing it. It's them. Jackie Chan might be like, hey, I think I could do this. But when Jackie Chan directs himself, or somebody like Benny Chan that knows him, I think he's the guy that did Who Am I? And I think he did some other movies. But when it's somebody like that knows him, lets him do his thing that he does, his fight scenes by himself, like, that's great. But when you get somebody like Buster Keaton who's going, hey, I got an idea, then, it sucks because now he's locked in a contract because Joseph Skank sold him there. And Charlie Chaplin, I think Chaplin and Harold Lloyd and them were like, don't sell your shit. Like, you need to own your own movies. You need to own all your stuff. But he was into, like, making the money now and was just like, no, I'm good. And then, as we see here that I'm getting ready to say, in 1954, the film entered the public domain in the United States because its claimant did not renew its copyright in the 28th year after publication. The General has since been reevaluated and is now often ranked among the greatest American films ever made. In 1962, they reissued his movies to critical acclaim. In 1963, Keaton said, I was more proud of that picture than any I ever made because I took an actual happening out of the history books and I told the story in detail too. In 1989, it was selected by the Library of Congress to be included in the first class of films for preservation in the National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. And finally, here is what Orson Welles had to say about The General. Ba-dum-bum-ba-dum-bum.
The General. It's about the Civil War. In fact, I think it's the Civil War movie. Nothing ever came near it. Not only for beauty, but for a curious feeling of authenticity. And yet this is a farce. A farce without Chaplin-esque sentiment, but imbued with a real and very curious sort of dignity. Nobody except Keaton has ever brought us that close to the feel of the Civil War, except maybe Matthew Brady, who was there at the time and who was, of course, the first and maybe the best still cameraman of all time. This movie has a kind of Brady quality, a lot of other qualities besides. It really deserves that tired word, masterpiece. Right at the start, and before we showed you this wonderful film, I think I mentioned the extraordinary beauty of Keaton's face. And what about the extraordinary beauty of the film itself? Very few films in all history have ever equaled it. Well, the subject, certainly, nothing. It's 100 times more stunning visually than Gone with the Wind. If you had half as good a time as I did watching it, you enjoyed yourself.
Okay, so there we go. That's for The General. Now let's get on to Jackie Chan. You guys are like, oh my God, come on. I don't think so. Look, if you guys watch The General, please write me. I want you guys to write me. I want you guys to let me know. Let me know what you think. Please watch it. It's an hour and 18 minutes long. It's good. You'll be glad you did, I think. Jason Bromley, maybe not, but the rest of you, I think, will. So anyway, now on to Jackie Chan, and here's something that I wrote. The first Jackie Chan movie that I ever saw was Rumble in the Bronx. I'd seen a little thing on MTV. Quentin Tarantino, I can't find it on YouTube. I've been looking for it. And Quentin Tarantino came up in like 94, 95 and said, here is before Rumble in the Bronx came out. And he said, lifetime achievement for Jackie Chan. And they played Everybody's Kung Fu Fighting, and they played Drunken Master, and they played Fearless Hyena, and they played all these great Project A, Armor of God. They played all this great stuff. And it was this great, like, sizzle reel, and I was just like, holy fuck, like, who is this guy? Like, that's fucking awesome. Because, and I don't know if this is before or when, but I remember seeing, I saw Rapid Fire back in the day with Brandon Lee, and I loved it. And on Rapid Fire, Brandon Lee has a thing where he's being held protective custody because he saw this thing, saw murder or something. And he realizes that the guys that are there to watch him are bad guys, like they're dirty cops. And so as they start to come at him, he like hits one guy with a fridge, hits another guy with some shit, like just shit that's laying around there. And I'm like, oh my God, that's really cool. And then when I see this Jackie Chan doing it, I was like, holy shit, or vice versa. But anyway, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Then when I went and saw the movie with my cousin, I believe, I asked my cousin, he said, I don't know. I said, yeah, I think it was you and I. I was like, holy shit, fucking badass. Like him fighting those guys when he goes to the criminal thing and he goes, you guys are all, you're all bad. You're all, I forget. He used another word, not bad, but he says that. And then all of a sudden this guy starts to get up. He kicks that guy in the face. That guy flips off the fucking hammock. And then he just jumps up on the pool table, starts fighting the main bad guy. And then everybody attacks. And he goes through the whole thing. And he hits a guy with the fridge, knocks the guy in the fridge, hits him with the door, climbs through a fucking shopping cart. Like all this shit. Like fucking great. And so it's just like, so that's where I was like, this guy, like the one that amazed me the most. I know this isn't about Rumble in the Bronx, but the thing that amazed me the most, but Rumble in the Bronx was my first intro to Jackie Chan, was when he runs from the parking garage and he jumps. And you've seen it now in parkour shit and all that, but he jumps from the parking garage down to like a balcony and lands on the balcony like at the next building. And you're like, holy shit. And they show it like a couple times to show how great it is. And it was amazing. And now Jackie Chan's getting older. He's talked about he wants to do more things where he can act. He likes The Foreigner because he's more of an actor. He's always been an actor who can do stunts, not a stunt guy who can act, which I agree with. So I was going to write something about Jackie Chan, but the beginning of this article I found says it the best. So this is from the New Republic from January 8th, 2019 by Ryu Spaeth. And the article is titled The Painful Price of Becoming Jackie Chan. And this is right after I think he came out with his memoir, his biography, which I'd really like to get. So this is what they have to say. There are many, I'm not going to read the whole article, it's just the beginning of the article. There are many ways to tell the story of Jackie Chan. He is the heir of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, the comic grace of his movements, leaving audiences in laughing wonder. He's also the heir of Bruce Lee. If Lee broke old stereotypes about the Asian man being frail and craven, then Chan reinvented him once more, offering across dozens of movies a consistent character who was almost childlike in his cheerfulness, known as much for his winking smile as for the fury of his fist. Before 1995's Rumble in the Bronx made him a household name in America, he was a filmmaker's filmmaker. His elaborate fight sequences and death-enticing stunts the objects of devoted study by Steven Spielberg and James Cameron. And he helped bring martial arts into the Hollywood mainstream, so that nearly every American action hero, from Jason Bourne to the Black Panther, now boast elements of karate or jiu-jitsu in their repertoire of ass-kicking skills. The transfer was symbolically completed in 1999's The Matrix, when Keanu Reeves, having downloaded a fighting program to his brain, opens his eyes and reverently whispers, "I know Kung Fu." So that said it the best. I couldn't write anything better. I might have left out the Matrix thing, but anyway. And Jackie Chan's still making movies. There's a newer one. It's more of a sci-fi kind of Bleeding Steel or whatever it's called. And it looks good. I watched the trailer and I was like, oh, so I'm going to probably watch that maybe tonight. But anyway, police story. 1985, a virtuous Hong Kong police officer must clear his good name when the drug lord he is after frames him for the murder of a dirty cop. Jackie Chan as Chan Ka Kui, Maggie Chung as May, Bridget Lin as Selena Fong, Kwok Hung Lam as Superintendent Raymond Lee. You know him if you see, he's in a lot of Jackie Chan movies. He's in a lot of Chinese movies, Kwok Hung Lam. But anyway, I'm sorry, Bill Tung as Inspector Bill Wong. Bill Tung is the guy. And Yung Chor as Mr. Chu Tao. So that's a bad guy. Written by Jackie Chan and Edward Tang, directed by Jackie Chan. So right away, this movie starts out with shootout. Like there's a shanty town, there's a drug deal going on. All the cops have been, talked to about here's what we're going to do. They're all in place. They're all undercover. Somebody sees that one of the guys has an earpiece in and is talking on the radio. And Jackie Chan's like, his character's like, hey, man, what are you doing? Watch out. And then that guy tells someone, like, the cops are here. So now they go to run, and Jackie Chan goes to chase them. So there's this whole shootout in this shanty town. Then they get in a car and they take off down the hill of the shanty town. So if you've seen, again, talk about people that copy these things, Bad Boys 2, them driving through that shanty town, that's exactly what it is. Them driving through a shanty town at the beginning of this movie. This whole thing, all these, like, it's like, did they just build that to tear it down? Because it's crazy. Like, it can't be a real shanty town. They had to just build it. But anyway, all the way down there, he lands the car in the street. Then Then he jumps in a car and drives down the hill. Yeah, I said that. And drives through several buildings. It's spectacular. And then he gets out and on foot because his car's all broke. So now he's on foot, and he grabs a woman's umbrella as he runs by her, chases after the bus that the bad guys have jumped on because the car went ahead and left. Their car left. So now they got to jump on this on the bus. So they jump on the bus. He grabs the umbrella from her, runs after the fucking bus, and hooks with the umbrella. And they said, he tried to use a wood umbrella, but it wouldn't hook right. So then he got a metal umbrella, and then that one worked better. Then he gets knocked off the bus, but runs down a very steep hill to stop them. So that's another, if you've ran down a hill as a kid, I don't think we do it as adults because we're a little smarter, but if you've ever ran down a hill as a kid and you want to run as fast as you can, there's a point, if it's steep enough, where you almost can't stop, and you need a lot of room at the bottom of that hill to run it out, to kind of, to slow down. He fucking runs down this steeply slanted hill to run from one road to the other to stop this bus, to get in front of this bus. Runs all the way down, and then he stops a car. The car stops, skids sideways. That guy gets out. He takes his revolver out of his, he's wearing like a jumpsuit, pulls his revolver out, and he's waiting for the bus. And he's loading with the revolver, like the quick loader. He drops the 6 thing, which again, you've seen in Tango and Cash. Stallone waiting for this guy in a big semi-truck. And he, pulls his gun out, loads it with a speed loader, slams it shut, shoots in the air, shoots at him. Jackie shoots in the air. The bus stops, and the men fly out the window and land on the ground. And what's funny with that is, if you see that scene, is it was supposed to stop right at the car, and they were supposed to fall out on the car. But what happened was the brakes were too good or whatever, and when the guy stopped, when he hit the brakes on the bus, it stopped like 10 feet before the car. So those guys just flew out and landed landed on the street. So they kind of got hurt, but they left it in because it looked good. So that was pretty cool. And then he gets a promotion, and he's a poster boy for the police. And so then he's doing like photo shoots and stuff. And now he has to watch the secretary of the bad guy. So he catches the secretary first before she can leave, and he cuffs her to the car. So they think she knows a lot. She doesn't know much, but she knows a little bit. And so now he has to watch her. And a man tries to kill her in her apartment, although it's one of the cops wearing a mask, because they're trying to scare her to show her that she does need protection and that she needs to talk about what she knows. And what's cool about this, before they even send her with Jackie, the lawyer comes in there to be like, can we leave? And they're like, yeah, you can leave, but we need to watch her. She's going to be under protective custody. And they're like, no. And they're like, yeah, she is. And then they're like, Mr. Lawyer, can you leave for a second? So lawyer leaves for a second. And then they just keep her in there. They go, we need to talk to her, to Sabrina, or Celine, or whatever her name is. We need to talk to her. So then they're waiting. And after that lawyer leaves, they're just like drinking their coffee. They're not saying much. It was Selena. They're not saying anything. And they just wait for like 10 or 15 minutes. Then they're like, okay, you can leave. And then the lawyer's like, so what did they ask you? And she's like, they didn't say anything. And he's like, no, you can tell me, really. And she's like, no. So that was a whole thing to now the lawyer will go and be like, yeah, they talked to her. They had her in there for 15 minutes. They must have been talking to her about something. So it's pretty great. And so this guy that's trying to, Jackie's buddy that's trying to attack her. And it's a funny little fight scene, and just funny, trying to scare her to show her that she needs protection. And then Jackie saves the day, and then is like, well, let's go to your apartment, or my apartment. So, and then later she finds out that, oh, that was that guy. Like, you made that all up. And he's like, no, not all of it. He quits, but just to make her agree to be protected. Like, he's like, so then she's like, no way. He's like, fine, then I'm done. I'll just leave. Who knows who will attack you? Like, I'm going to go because I don't need to put up with this bullshit. And he goes to leave, and then she's like, wait. So now she's afraid, and now she needs his help. So he's like, okay. And then there's a sequence where, so he's driving, and he comes around the corner, and he's talking to her, and all of a sudden there's a guy pushing a baby carriage, and Jackie is talking to her and doesn't see it, and he hits the baby carriage, and the baby carriage gets knocked over, and the guy's like, oh, my baby. And then he goes, why are you talking to me? And he runs out there to pick up the baby carriage and the baby, and it's a doll. And then he looks, and it's one of the bad guys, and then they start fighting. And then the other guys start attacking. And so Jackie's like going through the car. It's fucking great sequence. These are the things where I say, you give Jackie like, hey, you're going to be attacked here. What should we do? And all his men are like, well, okay, you have this car. The girl's in the car. You jump through the back and then go through the window without opening that other door. And then you get up on the roof. And then this car is going to slam into the front of this car. And then you jump through the window and kick that guy. And then that guy will come and you throw that guy into the window. Like all this great stuff. Like I said, I can't explain it to you, but it's fucking great. Go check out Police Story. It's also on Canopy if you have a library card. Canopy is a streaming service. So that's just so good. So he takes her to his apartment, and there's a surprise party. And then his girlfriend's like, oh, you're bringing some girl home. And she's all upset, and it's a misunderstanding. And then she goes back to apologize. But now he's just like, I don't care about her. Like, she loves me. Blah, blah, blah. And that girl, May, who's there, May is his girlfriend. She's like hearing all this. And Selena's trying to be like, shut up, man. But anyway, then she ran off in the night and is not available for court. So then she like kind of flirts with him or does whatever, and it gets recorded. And so it sounds like they're having sex, but actually they're not. He spilled water and all this stuff. But anyway, because he had recorded her before of saying all this stuff, but then she recorded over it of their thing. Anyway, she goes to bed. He wakes up in the morning from sleeping on the couch. She's gone. He's late for court. His boss is calling him like, what the fuck? Let's go. So he gets to court. He goes to play the audio, and all the tape is, you know, all this like, oh, you got me wet. I'm so wet. And, oh, why don't we go to bed together? And where are you going to sleep? And then he's like, no, wait. And that's what's great about him. Like just his facial gestures, like all this stuff, his facial expressions. So then they let all the bad guys go, and the main bad guy especially. And we find out the girl is in an apartment that the bad guy's paying for. And there's a cop that is on the take, and they ask him to take care of Jackie. And there's a funny gag then later, before any action, where Jackie's just in the police station, and somebody's like, hey, I'm going to go take a shit. Can you answer the phones? He's like, yeah, sure. And so he's at like, there's like 5 tables there, and they all have like a couple phones on them. And a phone will ring, and he answers it. Hey, my cow got stolen. Another phone rings. Yeah, what's going on? I was raped. I want to say rape. Okay. And then another phone rings. Hey, and it's his girlfriend. Oh, hey, May, how you doing? Hang on a minute. When was the rape? No, I had a cow stolen. Okay. Hey, when was the cow stolen? No, I'm a rape. And it's like, And so it's all this, and it's just him like getting all tangled up in the chords, and like did a thing with the pencil where he needs to write something down. So he kicks the pencil and catches it, and they show later in the outtakes like that took a couple times. So little things like that just look so flawless, so effortless. And something that I thought of before I get back into this was Buster Keaton will never show like fear. And I remember reading a thing that they said that's why Buster Keaton didn't do as well with audiences as like Harold Lloyd did. Harold Lloyd would be hanging from the clock tower, hanging from that clock, and have this fear look on his face. And Buster Keaton would do it with no expression. That's why he's called the stone face, just no expression. And I think that's great because it just show like just shit happens, and he's just like, Anyway, but Jackie Chan will show like when he was hanging from that bus, he's like running and like afraid when cars are coming, like all this stuff. Anyway, yeah, funny gag. The cop that's on the take tells Jackie where the girl is, and he heads there. Jackie rescues a girl, then all the bad guys, he's like, where'd they go? And she's like, I don't know. And then they all show up. And there's another cool fight scene of him, like, you know, kicking guys out window. Like, these guys are falling like 2 stories, like down to, you know, hit the ground. Like, holy, 1 story, but, you know, they're on the 2nd floor. Anyway, pretty cool. The cop puts his gun on Jackie, and then they put their gun on the bad cop and kill him. Jackie and her run to the roof. So they take Jackie's gun, and then they shoot that cop with Jackie's gun. And then Jackie and her run to the roof, and Jackie throws her into the pool off the roof, which is a pretty cool sequence. They leave Jackie alive on a hill, and he makes it to a phone and calls his girlfriend. And they left his gun with him. And he sees, and we see through newspaper headlines that he has been set up. And he walks into the police station to give himself up and to tell them, like, hey, here's what happened. And he tries to tell them what happened, but they have to go by the evidence that his gun has killed the other officer. And then Jackie takes the police chief hostage. He almost goes nuts at this point. Now it's like, I'm a rogue cop with a vendetta. Like, fuck this bad guy. I'm going to go get him. So now, before when he was just like, ha ha ha, he's funny. Now he's accused of murder. And so he takes the police chief hostage. Then they walk outside. Police chief tells him, don't do anything. You know, put your guns down. They get in a car. They drive away. And they get down the road. And Jackie lets him go. Jackie's like, okay, you can leave now. And the chief explains to him that he is actually on his side. And it's pretty cool because, you know, all this time, like, the guy's like, oh, like, you're thinking this guy's really by the book. And he has said kind of like, here's what it said, but I don't know. But now he's like, look, they're not going to look for you or they're not going to do anything until they find me. I'm going to be hidden for a while. And it's like, oh, that's cool. He's giving him some time. And Jackie goes for Chan, the bad guy. So now Jackie's like with a vengeance. Like, he's with his girlfriend. They're watching like what this guy's doing. Like, he's going to make his move or whatever. And he finds out that his informant set him up. And so Selena's gone. They can't find Selena. He finds out that his informant set him up before, and Jackie's on the trail of taking the bad guy down. So that was that, and, you know, the informant was also setting him up. So the witness makes it to a computer and prints up some important documents. So May is like Selena has printed up some documents. May is his girlfriend that's with him watching all this stuff. So now May has these documents, and now they're in a mall. And they find out, like, oh, my God, she printed out these documents. We can't, though, let that get into the cops' hands. So now they're at a mall. Jackie sees Selena and the bad guy trying to hurt. He sees Selena, and the bad guy's trying to hurt her. And so a fight ensues. And there's clothing racks on wheels, glass cases, a motorcycle, and a 3-story pole is what I wrote down. These things that I cannot explain to you that are so good, but they're fighting over this little leather satchel, like a briefcase, and Jackie like slides, knocks a guy down off his feet, grabs the satchel, they fight over it, fights that guy, then they go slam some guys into some glass, a motorcycle tries to run him over, he kicks that guy, knocks him down, gets on the motorcycle, drives through some glass with another guy on there, like all this stuff. Oh, so good. Then he gets up to basically the 3rd floor of this mall. And there's this big glass pole. And he's got to get down because they're all running down. They're going to get away. And he jumps and lands on the pole and slides all the way down. And it's got lights around it. He's breaking all the lights as he's sliding down. They show it like 3 times. And there's 2 things with this. One is Jackie Chan would never be like, okay, we're going to film that. When are we going to film that? Okay, 2:00. All right, cool. What time is it? Oh, it's noon. Okay, I'll wait. No. He would go, I'm up here. I'm ready. You got the monitor. You watch everything. Okay, I'm going to go. Like, he didn't want to overthink it because then he would be like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die at 2:00. So he would just be like, I'm here. You ready? You ready? Okay, roll. Let's go. Boom. And he'd go. So he's up there like just waiting, and he just jumps. Just let's go. Like, no fear. Like, he has to. He's hurt himself so many times, all kinds of, I'm going to get into that in a minute. Jumps onto the pole, slides all the way down. when they plugged the lights in that are wrapped around this pole, they plugged them into an outlet, like a 110 outlet, instead of like they're supposed to be maybe battery operated or whatever, like not very hot. But these things were on all day. They were very hot. And he got like 2nd-degree burns on his hands sliding down there. And then he goes through the thing, lands on his ground, and kind of got hurt. And they show that in the outtakes. But Jackie catches the bad guys. His superintendent, his inspector is like, hey, man, don't do anything. You know, there's witnesses and everything. Don't do anything. We need to do this by the book. And Jackie's still pissed. And he just punches the guy and punches the lawyer and then beats up the other guy. And then the inspector and the superintendent, the inspector's like, are you going to help me write this up? And the superintendent goes, write what up? And walks away. That police chief just walks away. And it's like, oh, cool, they're not going to write up. And then it ends on a freeze frame of Jackie. And then Police Story 2 happens later on. And so it's very, very cool. I really liked it. I've seen it twice in probably a month, and I love it, and I might watch it again. Maybe have my wife watch it. Who knows? So later reviews included one from the Time Out Film Guide, which stated that in Jackie Chan land, vehicles are for trashing small buildings, while big buildings are for falling off of or sliding down. The likable and graceful Chan directs, sings, and performs jaw-dropping stunts. In advance of the film's 4K restoration release in 2018, Matt Zoller Seitz of RogerEbert.com gave the film 4 out of 4 stars, stating that Police Story is one of the great 1980 action films. It is also one of the most 1980s action films, commenting its cop on the edge cliches and synthesizer music. Seitz further wrote that the entire film has the mentality of a master showman who wants to dazzle in every moment, big or small. A stunt near the end gets repeated at full length 3 times, from 3 different angles. This would seem like a display of narcissism if it weren't one of the greatest stunts in the history of movies, right up there with the collapsing house in Steamboat Bill Jr. and the final fall in Starsky's Machine. Steamboat Bill Jr., Buster Keaton, Starsky Machine, Burt Reynolds. But that had the stunt man, they had a decelerator on Sharky's Machine. So when the guy, he goes, maybe if you push real hard, you can hit the pool. Such a cool scene. And the bad guy, he's like this albino bad guy, and he pushes himself off, and he falls, and he dies. In real life, he would die later filming Lethal Weapon. But they have they made a decelerator machine, the stuntman. Anyway, not to get into Burt Reynolds things, but this thing, it would go bzzz, and then it would slow down before you hit the ground. It's very cool. But anyway, they're saying like right there, it's a stunt like Buster Keaton or this stunt guy did. Speaking of stunts, Chan has been injured frequently when attempting stunts. Many of them have been shown as outtakes or as bloopers during the closing credits of his films. He came closest to death filming Armor of God when he fell from a tree and fractured his skull. Over the years, he has dislocated his pelvis and also broken numerous parts of his body, including his fingers, toes, nose, both cheekbones, hips, sternum, neck, ankle, and ribs. Promotional materials for Rumble in the Bronx emphasized that he performed all of the stunts, and one version of the movie poster even diagrammed his many injuries. I remember that poster. It was pretty cool. This movie spawned several sequels. Here's what many of you may not have known. There's Police Story, this one that we talked about, Police Story 2, Police Story 3, Super Cop. See, Super Cop, when it came out for us in America, it didn't say Police Story 3, Super Cop. It just said Super Cop. Police Story 4, First Strike, didn't say Police Story 4. It just said First Strike. And New Police Story, which I haven't seen, which I'm going to watch tonight. I think I found it on YouTube for free. And Police Story Lockdown, which was made in 2013. And that was where he's like at a club, and these, it's basically like Die Hard in a club. And he's in this club, but then there's like an arena where they fight, and he fights, and, he's older. He gets pretty fucked up, and it's pretty like gruesome. I remember going, oh, this is a gruesome Jackie Chan a little bit. Like there was some brutal kind of fights. But anyway, that's it for comedic action. And so just know that certain movies stick with you and stay in your head and heart forever. So join me next time when I put two movies together with one topic or theme. My celluloid heart is big and gets bigger with every new movie that I watch. So thank you, everybody. I'm sorry that this was a little long, but I enjoyed myself very much. And please go to my Facebook page, and I'll have in the show notes where to get the general. And let me know. Call that number, 602-688-2403, and let me know what you think of the general, what you think of silent films. If it's "fuck you, Philip, Buster Keaton sucks," then let me know, and I'll play it on the show. So until then, I'm Philip, and have a good one.